Today we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting polynomials. A polynomial is a monomial or the sum/difference of two or more monomials. The degree is the sum of the exponents of its variables. Standard form of a polynomial is when the degrees of its monomial terms decrease from left to right, and the degree of a polynomial is the same as the degree of the monomial with the greatest exponent. So let's say we have a degree of 0. The way we name a degree of 0, it's called a constant. An example would be -2. There's no variable, so that means we have a degree of 0, so this is called a constant. And in this case, we have one term, and when we have one term, we can call it a monomial. If we have a degree of 1, it's called a linear. An example could be 2x plus 4. We have an x variable, so we have an exponent of 1. I know it's not there, but it's an invisible 1 up top. So that's what makes it a linear term. And there are two terms here. So this is called a binomial when we have two terms. If we have a degree of 2, it's called a quadratic. So for instance, if we have -3x squared minus 5x plus 10, our highest degree is a 2. Here's a 1. This is a 0. So this is our constant, this is our linear, and this is our quadratic term. So our highest degree is 2, so it's quadratic. And in this case, we have 3 terms, so it's called a trinomial. If we have a degree of 3, we call that a cubic. So for example, we could have x to the third minus 10x. Our highest degree is 3, so it's called a cubic. And in this case, we have 2 terms, so we can call it a binomial. If we have a degree of 4, that is called a quartic. An example would look like 2x to the fourth minus 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. Highest degree is 4, so it's a quartic. In this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So anything above 3 terms, we are going to call it a polynomial of however many terms. So in this case, 4 terms. So if we had 6 terms, it would be a polynomial of 6 terms. So then if we have a degree of 5, that's called a quintic polynomial. So an example could be -3x to the 5th plus 2x minus 10. Our highest degree is a 5, so it's quintic, and we have 1, 2, 3 terms, so it's called a trinomial. So let's look at some example problems using what we just learned. So we're going to write each polynomial in standard form and classify by the degree and number of terms. So first we need to simplify. So we have a like term, so we have 4x minus 6x. So that becomes -2x plus 5. This is in standard form because we have a degree of 1 and then a degree of 0, so it's decreasing. We have 2 terms, so this is called a binomial. And our highest degree is that 1, so this is a linear polynomial. In this case, we have 3x to the third and a positive 2x to the third, so we have 5x to the third. X squared has no other like terms, and neither does our -4x. This is in standard form because it's going from a degree of 3 to a degree of 2 to a degree of 1, so it's decreasing. We have 3 terms, so this is called a trinomial based on the number of terms. And our highest degree is 3, so it's called a cubic. Now if we look at our next one, we have 6 minus 2x to the 5th. We have no like terms, so in this case, we don't have to simplify, but it's not in standard form. So our -2x to the 5th has to come before our positive 6 because we have a degree of 5 and then a degree of 0. In this case, we have 2 terms, so it's called a binomial. and our highest degree is 5, so it's called a quintic polynomial. we need to simplify and then classify by the number of terms. So here we have a 1 we need to distribute. So 1 times 3x squared is 3x squared. 1 times 5x is 5x. And 1 times a negative 1 is a negative 1. So in this case, since we're subtracting, we need to distribute a negative 1. So we have a negative x squared. Negative 1 times 6 is a negative 6. So let's simplify by combining our like terms. So we have 3x squared and a negative x squared. So that means we have 2x squared. We can't combine anything with our 5x. And then we have negative 1 and our negative 6 combining to be negative 7. So now this is in standard form because we're going from a degree of 2 to a degree of 1 to a degree of 0. We have 3 terms. So this is a trinomial. Our highest degree is a 2, so it's called a quadratic. So for our next example, again we distribute that positive 1. So we end up with negative 3x to the 4th, negative 5x squared, plus 1x minus 7. Here we're adding, so we're going to be distributing a positive 1. So that means we end up with 6x to the 4th, plus x to the 3rd, minus 2x plus 3. So here we can combine negative 3x to the 4th and a positive 6x to the 4th. So those combine to be a positive 3x to the 4th. Then we have x to the 3rd, and that doesn't combine with anything. Negative 5x squared doesn't combine as well. Here we have positive x and a negative 2x. So those combine to be a negative 1x. Then we have a negative 7 and a positive 3 to combine to be a negative 4. This is in standard form. We're going from degree of 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. So this is a polynomial of 5 terms. And our highest degree is 4, so this is a quartic. Let's look on the back side. Alright, so for these ones, we are adding our 2 polynomials, and we're distributing a positive 1 to both. So we end up with 5m squared plus 9 plus 3m squared plus 6. Like terms, 5m squared plus 3m squared is 8m squared. 9 plus 6 is 15. So once we simplify, we know we have 2 terms, so it's called a binomial. Highest degree is 2, so it's called a quadratic. So let's look at this next one. We have a positive 1 we distribute to get 6c minus 5. Here we're subtracting, so now we're distributing a negative 1, so it's a negative 4c minus 9. So our like terms, we end up with 6c minus 4c, and a 2c. Negative 5 minus 9 is a negative 14. We have 2 terms, so it's a binomial. Our highest degree is a 1, so it's a linear polynomial. I want you to finish these 2 on your own.